Didn't Vince Staples refuse to go on your show?
He told DW Flame, because DW Flame has been doing a live stream podcast called the CEO Podcast on Thursdays, and he tried to like call in a few of his, because he's from Long Beach. He called in a few of his connects, and Vince Staples was one of them. But he said that Vince Staples made it clear that he doesn't have a problem with me, but that he also wouldn't come do an interview on my platform, which, whatever. I don't really care. Like, to me, it's not that surprising because you don't really do a lot of media. It seems like at one point he was doing everybody's podcast. He was on here a bunch. He was going viral because he's fucking hilarious. He's like got a great sense of humor and he's super smart. But yeah, apparently No Jumper doesn't fall within the parameters of who he wants to be talking to.
Yeah, we did an interview. Well, I did an interview with him years ago. Must have been like 12 years. And I was on the phone. This is before we had...
Oh, you only did one?
I only did one, yeah.
I thought you did
FaceTime.
Okay.
Well, now I do FaceTime if I'm not in the same place as them. But at that time, we only had phones. Mm-hmm. So we did the interview. It was an okay interview. And then I remember like someone on Twitter was like, oh, when are you going to do Vince Staples? And I'm like, I don't think Vince likes me. And then he was like, he responded. He's like, well, what do you mean I don't like you? I'm like, well, you haven't done my show in forever. He's like, well, when I did your show, you had a young black kid interview me. And I'm like, no, I didn't. He was the cameraman, but I interviewed you. And he's like, oh, no, you had some black kid interview me, then you put your voice into the interview. I'm like, no, that's not what happened. Like, why would I lie about that? Like, I've never done that.
Yeah.
No, I was like, I've never interviewed somebody and put my voice instead of someone else's voice. That's just weird. I wouldn't do that. He goes, well, I don't want to just talk about a bunch of gang shit anyways. And I'm like, all right, well, it is what it is. And I guess you don't like me. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. Like, I don't think anyone has to interview with me.
But that's kind of a weird feeling where like Vince Staples, somebody that I was like listening to for years and years before I was doing hip hop content when I was still riding BMX bikes. And then like you get to the point where you think like, oh, it makes sense that I would be able to, work with this person to some extent, but then they don't fuck with you for, reasons that are not transparent to me. But at the same time, it's like, whatever, you can do interviews with anybody. If I was Vince Staples' manager, I would probably not advise him to go do a shitload of different podcasts. I would probably say like, when your album comes out, do one here and there, but don't be like, just doing a shitload of them. So I understand. I respect that people want to kind of limit their exposure publicly,
Look, like everyone chooses who they want to do interviews with if they do interviews. Every day I get offers to do interviews that I just pass up on. Like, nah, I'm good. I check out their numbers or their content. It's like, or sometimes like, all right, well, if you pay me, I'll do it. And sometimes I'll do a podcast I get paid for. That's cool. But lots of stuff, people pass on. People pass on my shit. It is what it is.
I respect it because, I was thinking about this earlier when I was thinking about Kendrick's career. Think about how much shit Kendrick says no to. Like, and that's true of every, like, big rapper. But think about with Kendrick where, like, you've only heard him on a couple of people's projects, even in, the last 5 years. Like, you just very rarely see him do anything. Like, the idea of him doing that verse on the Future and Metro Boomin album, even though it's Future and Metro Boomin, is pretty fucking crazy that he actually, like, considered this to be worthy of his time. I mean, Kendrick Lamar probably gets multi-million-dollar offers from pop stars every year to be on their project and says no.
Yeah.
Which is amazing to me because that's like really, I feel like your artistry in some ways is almost defined by what you don't do versus what you do. And there's a lot of people like Playboy Cardi has cultivated this ridiculously like, weird, creepy fucking image for himself. But it's if he was sitting on Vlad TV every couple months or if he was doing Breakfast Club or whatever, it'd be a lot harder for him to, keep that mystique up. So I respect anybody who chooses to do that, even though obviously from my perspective, it would be great if they just talk to me all the time.